Hello, my name is Hunter, and welcome to the Questing Dwarf channel. Today I have something special, a quick dungeon run-through using a system I've created. It's called ZWEIHANDER Quest. The name itself isn't the only thing that's reminiscent of those old dungeon crawlers either. I wrote it to be my dream game, an amalgamation of everything that I love from Warhammer Quest 1995, Advanced Hero Quest, and a few other of my favorite fantasy board games. I settled on a D12 system not only because it's what Advanced Hero Quest used, but a D6 just didn't have enough swing to insert a critical system that I wanted to have. I think you'll find there's a lot of depth here in my game that some people honestly might not appreciate, but I feel is really neat. It might not be shown in this video, but this will be coming out soon, so you might be able to read it. Enough talking though. It's actions that matter. Let's get into the game. In ZWEIHANDER Quest, unlike its ancestors, you must roll to see the location of your adventure, specifically where the dungeon is located within the world, and what type of dungeon it is. It could take place in the craggy mountains, deep underground, in some city sewers, a frozen woodland, etc., etc. For our quest, we get ruins, a pretty typical place for an adventure, usually some rundown ancient elf or dwarf city, castle or hold. Doesn't change the adventure that much, but the important bit of information is that we will need a light source to prevent being lost. In ZWEIHANDER Quest, being lost in the dark is caused by starting your turn without any direct line of sight to a light source, as opposed to just being 2 dungeon tiles away. Each of my characters has a light source, a torch, so we'll be fine. Or multiple torches. Next, we need to see what enemies we're facing. I originally planned to write rules for a vast multitude of Warhammer Fantasy races, but it was much too ambitious, so I just picked my favorites in the end. The monster types are Skaven, Undead, Greenskins, Heretics, Beastmen, and Warriors of Chaos. Maybe I'll do some expansions for more of the classic fantasy factions like Chaos Dwarves, but for now I think this is good. We end up getting Greenskins, which is perfect. Shouldn't be too difficult. Next we roll to see what type of adventure we are on and what a specific adventure is. This is one of the areas I really wanted to improve compared to Warhammer Quest. 25 adventures is a little weak, especially for a game as replayable as Warhammer Quest. In ZWEIHANDER Quest, there are 5 mission types, each with 12 adventures to take part in. In total, that's 60 adventures, most of which are designed to be vague enough to be reasonably encountered by the same pack of adventurers. So, you should never have any immersion-breaking things going on where you're saving the same guy from the same thing. In my game. For our party, we roll Mercy Mission, and the 6th adventure therein. A town is in its death throes of a terrible disease, and the only hope for the survival of their populace is Shalian medicine, from the Grand Hospice of Shalia. And while they would provide medicine, they have no one to spare for its delivery, and the way above the surface is blocked by terrible weather. The way to the town is through the underground, and within the back of the objective room lies a large gate. Behind it leads up to the town's main road. Once there are no more monsters on the board, the party may exit the tunnels through the gate. Upon delivering the medicine, the grateful townsfolk will give you 1d12 times 25 gold per battle level and 1d6 provisions each as a reward. So, basically, we just got to get to the objective room, defeat the monsters in there, and then get to the town. Now that we've got our adventure figured out, let's introduce the characters. Our adventurers are Albrecht Feinberg, a human warrior priest, Bogard Leitner, a human knight. I'm assuming either Panther or Blazing Sun. Who knows, though? I didn't really decide. Ingo Edelman, a human Shish wizard. If you don't know what that is, they're into necromancy. Krogan Copperaxe, a dwarf slayer, and Delval, a wood elf bowman. If you want to pause and look at their character sheets, feel free. I'm going to keep going, however, just to keep the video shorter. Just a quick overview of the character sheets here. At the top, below their name, you can see their race, class, archetype. The race and class are pretty self-explanatory, but the archetype is the specific kind of, class that they are. I might actually swap the names around later, because it's a little confusing, but yeah. Then we have corruption. Characters gain this throughout the game. If they get too much, they might receive a mutation, but they can reduce this in town when they're done with the adventure. Next, we have the character's wounds, self-explanatory here, and next to it is their arcane total. This works identically to the stored power mechanic of Warhammer Quest 1995. They may spend this total throughout the adventure, and when they get back to town, it replenishes. If they have any spells or skills, they will be under that area. To the left is the stat block. From left to right, we have movement, weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, agility, initiative, willpower, attacks, damage dice, fate, and craft. Movement is how many spaces a character can move per turn. Weapon, ballistics, Weapon, ballistic skill, strength, toughness are all self-explanatory. Agility is used for avoiding traps and reactions, or performing particularly agile movements. Highest initiative goes first in the turn order. Willpower is used for fear or terror. Attacks is how many attacks you can use per turn. Damage is how many damage dice you roll after you've hit your target. Fate is a unique point that you can use to re-roll or avoid a number of things, and Craft represents your overall intelligence and is useful in a handful of traps and encounters. The rest of the character sheet is pretty obvious, so I won't talk about it. So let's get to playing. First thing we do in the game is set up the entrance room, which is always a normal square room with a singular door. The turn goes as follows. Starting with the recovery phase, we first roll for power to see if we get an unexpected event, and also to determine how much magical energy our magic users have this turn. We roll a 9. There's not much else to do in the recovery phase if nobody is downed or has any conditions, so we'll probably only mention the power roll from now on. Next in the action phase, the party goes in initiative order and moves towards the door. When there's monsters, they'll also go in initiative order, with some heroes going before or after the monsters, depending on what their initiative is. If a hero and a monster have the same initiative, the hero ends up going first. Turn 2, we roll a 12, which is simultaneously amazing and terrible for our magic users, because 12 in the power roll could be a major miscast. In our case, it ends up being a major miscast. It's a coin flip whether we suffer the ill fate, and unfortunately we do. We roll a 1 on the major miscast table and get Arcane Reservoir. The result reads, the winds of magic do not know where to flow, and so they swell up inside the wizard's body and soul, causing the magic user's eyes and mouth to glow in the light of their chosen lore. Any magic users gain +1 corruption and take d12 times battle level wounds with no modifiers. A very unfortunate thing to happen right off the bat, but such is the game. Ingo and Albrecht both take +1 corruption, and fortunately, they only take 2 wounds each. Well, at least we have 12 power for the rest of the action phase. Albrecht kicks open the door and discovers a large lair room beyond it, which is filled with 1d6 goblins and a goblin shaman. We roll 5 goblins, and of course the 1 goblin shaman. Shouldn't be too bad for the first combat. It being the action phase, the goblin shaman immediately uses his goblin magic. He should have used it at the start of the turn, but we didn't see him yet. Lucky for us, he fails. Albrecht then makes his way forwards and promptly misses his attack. Fearing for his life in the face of these most dangerous creatures, Albrecht bravely uses Armor of Righteousness 2 times to get 2 toughness for this turn. Delval, or Elf, moves up, and he misses the shot with his bow. Bogard misses horrendously. I think I'll use this instance to explain how rolling to hit works in my game, so you can see why this is so disappointing. In ZWEIHANDER Quest, the number required to hit is determined by subtracting the attacker's weapon skill from the defender's and adding it to 7. In this case, Bogard's weapon skill is 9, and the goblin's weapon skill is 6. 6 minus 9 is -3, so adding that to 7, we get 4. Bogard needed to roll a 4 or higher in order to hit his target on a d12. He rolled a 2. Very disappointing indeed. Ingo casts Soul Vortex, causing 10 wounds to 2 goblins, killing them instantly. And Soul Vortex is a 2x2 square area, so he could only hit 2 of them. The goblins then go before Krogan, since he rolled a pitiful initiative of 1. One of the goblins attacks Bogard, quite a stretch, and of course the goblin misses, and the 2 remaining others attack Albrecht, both missing. The shaman stays in the back as to preserve his life and get another chance to cast next turn, and Krogan finally moves forward and slays the goblin, blocking Bogard. Nothing to see in the end phase, so we start turn 3. We get 9 power, and in the action phase, the goblin shaman casts to Crunch. One of the heroes is stamped on by the mighty foot of Mork, determining which hero randomly. That hero suffers 1d12 plus 15 wounds. Krogan suffers the might of Mork and takes 16 wounds after reducing for toughness. Albrecht then takes his turn and disappointingly rolls a 1 to hit. A 1 while rolling to hit is a melee critical fumble, which means we roll on the critical fumble table. Albrecht's result reads, you trip over yourself whilst making your swing and you sprain your ankle. Very disappointing. You gain a stun conditioned, which means Albrecht is stunned now and he can't do anything for the rest of the turn. I represent this stun condition with a blue hammer dice next to him because I don't have any stun tokens. Delval moves forward past the goblins and puts an arrow right between the shaman's eyes for 15 damage, going through its toughness and all its wounds, killing it. Ingo uses his power to heal Krogan for 4 of his missing wounds, and Bogard moves forward and takes a more successful swing at a goblin, killing that one. The remaining goblin gets a lucky critical hit roll of 12 and deals 14 damage to Albric, though only 5 gets through Albric's armor. Krogan then moves forward and kills the goblin for the priest. After a successful combat, the party rolls to see what dungeon room treasure they find, and they get some gold. Not super impressive, but a good reward nonetheless. They add this to their pouches, and they press on. Turn 4, and in the recovery phase, we get a power roll of 6, and Albric sheds his stun condition. In the action phase, Albric moves to the lower door, discovering a hallway with a torch and some stairs at the end. He then uses the Blessing of Heldenhammer, which can heal up to 1d3 people. He manages to get all 3, heals himself for 6 wounds, Krogan for +1, and Ingo for +6. Albric is back up to 26, Krogan is back up to 13, and Ingo is fully healed. Ingo then uses some of his healing to get Krogan up to 17 wounds, and everybody moves towards the door. Turn 5, we get 5 power. Albric moves down the corridor, and he wants to do Blessing of Heldenhammer, but he's 1 power short. In hindsight, I could have just used my stored power, but it's not a big deal. The rest of the party follows, and Ingo heals Krogan for +3, bringing him up to 20. Turn 6 goes exactly the same as turn 5. Krogan is now at 23 wounds. Turn 7, and with a power of 10, the party moves on to the stairs. Ingo heals Krogan and Albric, bringing them up to full wounds, and since the whole party is on the stairs tile, they can head down to the next floor of the dungeon. Stairs lead down to the next floor of the dungeon. When you are on the stair space and there are no monsters on the board, you may declare that you are going down 1 floor. All party members must do this simultaneously, then clear the table of the existing board tiles, except for the stairs tile they are currently on. Treat the stairs tile as newly generating corridor and generate the dungeon normally. When generating rooms, you will roll on the next highest table for rooms explored. Basically, whenever I go to see what kind of room I end up encountering, I roll on a specific table, depending on how many rooms I've explored previously. If I go down a floor, we just get to skip to the next table entirely, instead of having to explore more rooms. Since we treat the stairs tile on the next floor as newly generating corridor, we roll to see what we find again. Funnily enough, we roll another corridor with another stairs down tile at the end. There is a door this time, however. When we go down a floor, we start a new turn, and for turn 8, we roll 9 power. There's nothing to do this turn but move down the corridor. At least there's no unexpected event. Turn 9 grants us yet another power roll of 12. Of course, we get a major miscast again, and roll 7. Arcane Explosion. The overcast magic explodes out from the magic user's body, creating an incredible blast of energy. Each adjacent model around a random magic user is pushed back 1 square, and each takes 1d12 wounds with no modifiers, and another 1d12 wounds without modifiers if they cannot move. Ingo ends up getting selected, and everyone around them is moved back 1 space. Albric takes 5 damage, Delval takes 9, Krogan takes 2, and Bogard takes 5. Very unfortunate. This wizard is very unstable. Good thing we don't have a witch hunter around. Albric uses Blessing of Heldenhammer and gets 2 people, healing himself for 1 and 1 for Delval. Unfortunately, rolling a double 1 means the spell fails. Ingo, however, uses Cure Small Wounds several times to heal Delval for 4 and Bogard for +3, and then everyone moves reluctantly back together in preparation to go through the door. Turn 10, we get 6 power, and Albric starts by using Blessing of Heldenhammer on 3 people, healing himself and Krogan for 6 and Delval for 2. He then opens the door. When a character in a corridor opens the door, it will always be a room, so we roll on the next room table, and in an astounding stroke of luck, we get a 12, which means we found our objective room. Makes for a quick dungeon, but that's alright. Inside the objective room, we find furniture this time, a cupboard, and for monsters, we roll twice on the relevant battle level greenskins table. We end up getting 1d6 orcs, 1d6 goblins, and another 1d6 goblins and a goblin shaman. To pay us back for our luck, we get the maximum amount of orcs and goblins on the first group, and in the second group we get 2 more goblins and the shaman. Now, I did mess something up in the first combat. Since there's an extra character, I forgot to add an extra 25% monsters to the combat, but I did it this time, meaning I added 1 more orc and 2 more goblins. Now that we have a massive tide of green on the table, we can start the action phase. The Goblin Shaman gets to do Goblin Magic first and gets the maximum result. He gets Headbutt. The Shaman magically headbutts a random hero spellcaster. Roll 1d12. The spellcasting warrior must spend an equal number of arcane points to dispel this spell or suffer that many wounds automatically with no modifiers. The Shaman headbutts Ingo, who just decides to take the 5 damage. Not that bad. Then, finally, Albrecht takes the first turn and valiantly misses. He decides to use a fate point as it's the last combat, and he misses once more. All that flashy warrior priest armor is just for show, eh, Albrecht? Delval moves through the door and looses an arrow at an orc's head for 15 damage, killing it. Bogard moves forward but can't quite reach his target. Ingo moves forward and uses Caress of Lenif. It costs 8 power, so he uses 2 of his stored power. The spell itself causes 2d12 damage with no modifier for armor on a single target. He tries to use it on the shaman, but doesn't break through the shaman's toughness. Ingo uses a fate point to reroll the lowest of the 2 dice and gets to 7, totaling 10 damage this time, which brings the shaman down to 2 wounds remaining. Time for the orcs to go, as Krogan is much too slow. Every single orc misses its target except one on Bogard, who hit but didn't wound. Goblins then go, and with their spears they can reach Bogard and Albrecht from behind the orcs. They all miss as well, except for one, who hits Albrecht for 16 damage. Albrecht soaks 9 of it, but takes 6. Everyone in this combat must be drunk. This is a crazy amount of misses. Krogan finally moves his slow ass into the room and swings at the orc next to Delval, dealing 15 damage and killing it, and then he death blows into the next orc and deals 19 damage, killing that one. Ironically, the dwarf seems to be the only sober one. On to turn 11, we get 9 power. Goblin magic fails, thankfully. Albrecht casts Fiery Hammer of Sigmar with all his power, causing his melee hits to do an extra 1d6 damage and set his target ablaze. He swings for the leftmost orc, of course, missing. But then he uses his second fate point to reroll, and this time he actually hits. He deals 17 damage, plus 4 for his blessing. This kills the orc in a golden flash, and he death blows into the next orc. This time the grand total is only 13 wounds, which isn't enough to kill, and the orc has 1 wound remaining. Delval loses an arrow into a goblin, bringing it down to 2 wounds. Bogard, now in contact with his enemies, swings at the orc in front of him, dealing 19 damage, killing it, swinging through on a death blow into the next orc, which he also promptly kills. The remaining orcs attack Albrecht, one of them missing and the other causing a critical, which deals 17 wounds to the priest. Albrecht takes 9 and is brought down to 15 wounds. The goblins move forward. 4 attack Albrecht, 3 hit, but only 1 manages to wound Albrecht for 3 damage, taking him down to 12 wounds. 3 more attack Bogard, only 1 of which hits but fails to wound, and 1 attacks Krogan but misses. Krogan then attacks back and chops the goblin to pieces, and Ingo uses his power to cast Soul Vortex on the 4 spaces around the goblin shaman. The spell deals 10 damage with no modifiers for armor, which kills the shaman. He didn't want to take the chance of Caress of Lenif rolling poorly, so he just did this one. Turn 12, we get 7 power. Albrecht swings for the goblin to his left. He hits and kills it. Death blows into the next goblin, kills that one, but he misses his shot at the orc. Delval skewers one of the goblins for 10 damage, killing it. Bogard moves forward into the orcs. He misses with a critical fumble. He doesn't want this, so he re-rolls with a fate point and gets a 2. I guess it's better than a 1, but he's still not having it. Another fate point down, and he manages to hit the orc this time, killing that, and the death blows into another one and kills that one too. Ingo uses Soul Vortex again, killing 3 goblins, and the rest of the goblins move forward and attack, one missing Bogard and the other attacking Delval and causing 2 wounds. Krogan, being the last to go, protects Delval and cuts down the goblin who just attacked him, and we move on to turn 13. In the final turn, we get 5 power. With a praise to Sigmar, Albrecht smashes the last of the goblin's skulls in, and we win the game. The adventure mentioned there was an escape in the back of the room leading to our destination, so the party makes it out. When they get to the plague town and give them their medicine, they gratefully give the characters 1d12 times 25 gold each, and 1d6 provisions as well. Ingo rolls best and gets 300 gold and 3 provisions. Krogan gets 125 gold and 3 provisions. Albrecht gets 275 and 3 provisions. Bogard gets 75 gold and 4 provisions. And Delval gets 125 gold and 1 provision. Since the adventure ends in a town, there's no need to travel unless the party wants to find a better settlement, but I think they're fine for now. They don't have enough money for anything super rare or expensive, and none of them are ailing. A successful mission, if ever there was one. A little shorter than I would have wanted, but I guess for anyone watching, the rules explanation at the beginning of the game kind of evened it out. And also, you know, who doesn't want a nice, easy first adventure? I hope to be doing more of these, so please subscribe if you want to be notified when I do. And if you want to play this game, I'll be releasing ZWEIHANDER Quest soon publicly. I just gotta, you know, edit it. Gotta refine it just a little more and do all the art for it. So it should be out, I'm gonna say, in a year. But you'll probably see a video or two more before that happens. So, thank you for watching, and bye-bye.